The FBI investigates vampires. A severe headache hammered away as Agent Castabello waited for the medicine that he had taken to kick in. His brain felt like it had been scrambled. The pounding pain made it difficult, if not impossible, to focus on the horrific events of the previous night. Making sense of his memory of the prior evening was like trying to make sense of a hallucination. What happened at the police station was insane. It was a pure sadistic nightmare. This particular nightmare was real. It really happened. Agent Cono Castabello had given his statement to the sheriff. His account of the bloodbath at the police station sounded utterly fantastical and crazy. Sheriff Rayland McMasters attributed the crazy recollection offered by Agent Castabello to the effects of a concussion, or some type of significant head injury. At least that was his impression, until the video footage was viewed. The police station in Coffin Falls had multiple cameras, and what they revealed was extraordinary. "What in the hell?" said Sheriff McMasters in amazement as he stared at the monitor in disbelief. "What is it, sir?" asked Deputy Cooper. "I honestly don't know. Take a look and tell me," Sheriff McMasters answered in a faraway voice. The video recording was periodically broken up by static that looked like snow on an old cable TV. That static was strange enough, but what was in between the static and the clear recording was much stranger still. To be more precise, perhaps it was what appeared to be missing in the footage that was strangest of all. The security footage showed clearly the deputies, Agent Castabello, and the prisoner Adam. It showed that a frightened deputy dropped a set of keys to the cell. Agent Castabello could be seen picking up the keys and then unlocking the jail cell. What was seen next made no sense. Agent Castabello had been suspended several feet above the floor for about a minute or so, and then he just seemed to go limp. It looked as though he was floating in mid-air while asleep, or as if he had been knocked out. Suddenly, the agent's body flew into the wall with great force. He then collapsed onto the floor like a man who had been knocked out by Mike Tyson. The creepy footage didn't end there. The same exact thing happened to the male deputy. The female deputy, who had also gone into the jail area, drew her sidearm and fired it into what appeared to be thin air. She could be seen reloading her gun. She had proceeded to fire more rounds. Astonishingly, the footage didn't show anyone else there with them. As this all unfolded, it was clear that the prisoner, Adam, was not the target. Then suddenly, blood sprayed the wall. The female deputy's throat was visibly ripped open. It looked as though some force was controlling her, but the force was unseen. Then, suddenly, her dead body fell to the cold floor. The security footage went on to reveal similar events in the front of the police station. Deputy Tara, who had been working at the front desk, could be seen rising from her chair as she raised her gun and fired it into what appeared to be an empty room. It looked as though she was lifted up from the floor by an invisible force. There was no one there. For all intents and purposes, it appeared as though she was levitating several feet off of the floor. Then her head tilted to the side as her throat was ripped open. A river of blood poured out. The torrent of blood sprayed splatter all over the walls, the floor, and the ceiling. The images were graphic, disturbing, and horrendous. Sheriff McMasters asked the male deputy who survived the attack the previous night what he had seen, but the deputy didn't recall seeing Agent Castabello that night. In fact, he couldn't remember anything out of the ordinary. Even after the sheriff showed him the footage, he couldn't remember a thing about it. Perplexed, the sheriff was about to question Agent Castabello further, and that's when a team of FBI agents entered the police station. The small swarm of agents were busy as bees, as they began taking evidence from the heinous events of the night before. They zeroed in on the footage from the night before and confiscated it. Outraged, Sheriff McMasters raised his voice and said, "What do you think you're doing? You feds can't come in here and take evidence from a crime that happened here last night. This is my police station, and I lost 2 good deputies last night." A young woman wearing a black trench coat, a blue blouse, and black pants calmly and confidently walked up to the sheriff and replied, "Sheriff Raylan McMasters, I'm Special Agent Lydia Marsh. I'm terribly sorry for the loss of your deputies. What happened here was a real tragedy. These murders are linked to a series of murders spanning up and down the East Coast. This is now a federal case." Pointing his finger at Special Agent Lydia Marsh, Sheriff McMasters responded, "Look here, I don't mind working together with the Bureau, but I won't stand by and allow you to cut me out of this investigation. The girls who were slaughtered here last night were my responsibility. They were good deputies and even better people. I owe it to them to see this thing through, whatever it takes." Agent Marsh calmly and gently replied, "I know what you're feeling. I understand. We lost 13 good agents to the monster that did this. Bringing him to justice is our top priority. The trail of terror left by this fiend is far more vast than either you or Agent Castabello know. This case is highly sensitive, and I have detailed orders of how to proceed with it. All of the evidence is going with the FBI. It will be stored in a highly secured facility. Having said that, I intend to fill you and Agent Castabello in. I'm sure you are puzzled by what you've seen, or should I say, by what you haven't seen so far." Sheriff McMaster's eyes grew wide when he heard that last sentence. He said, "Okay, I'll hear you out. Let's go into my office to talk." The sheriff, Agent Kono Castabello, and Agent Lydia Marsh entered the sheriff's office and sat down. "I'm sure that you both have a lot of questions. I suspect that you may both be questioning your sanity too. Well, the good news is that you aren't crazy. The bad news is that monsters are real. And no, I'm not talking about metaphorical monsters. We believe that all of the murders linked to Adam, as well as the violent murders committed here last night, were perpetrated by the same vile beast. No doubt you noticed that each of the victims' bodies were drained of all their blood. In his statement, Agent Castabello already said who, or rather what, was responsible for this grotesque massacre. Sheriff McMasters interrupted and said, "Now hold on a minute. You can't be saying that a vampire did this." Squinting her eyes, Agent Marsh replied, "That's exactly what I'm saying." Shaking his head, the sheriff said, "Come on. Vampires don't exist. Have you watched too many episodes of The X-Files?" Brushing the long, silky black hair from her left eye, Agent Marsh replied, "The X-Files was a great show, but I assure you that it wasn't nearly as terrifying as reality is. The world can be a dark place, and real evil lurks and stalks in the darkness. The reason that you saw your deputies unload their guns into what appeared to be thin air is because a vampire was the target. Vampires do not cast a reflection, and they do not show up on film. The strange, flickering, snowy interference on the security footage was also the result of an unnatural presence, the presence of a powerful vampire. The reason that your surviving deputy doesn't remember anything from last night is because the vampire made him forget all about it." "Agent Marsh, if that's true, then why does Agent Castabello remember what happened last night?" the sheriff questioned. "Yes, now that is a very interesting question. That's one of the reasons that I came here. When I heard about Agent Castabello's statement, I was amazed. In his statement, he explained that this master vampire successfully used compulsion to make the deputy forget, yet the compulsion failed to work on Agent Castabello. This is the first time that we have encountered anyone who has successfully resisted a vampire's manipulation of the mind. We want to explore this further," Agent Marsh explained. "How long have you known that vampires actually exist? Are we supposed to say that vampires are murdering civilians and police officers? Sheriff McMasters questioned. The FBI has been aware of the existence of vampires for a number of years. No, of course we aren't going to tell the media and the public that a vampire is responsible for this bloodbath. Doing so would only increase fear and panic. People will already be frightened when they hear that a serial killer murdered 2 sheriff's deputies, knocked out another deputy and an FBI agent, and broke out of jail. We will simply state the facts while being very selective of which facts we release. Really, this is standard procedure for ongoing investigations. Therefore, we'll say that we have reason to believe that an accomplice orchestrated the tragic events that took place here, further explained Agent Marsh. People will want to know more. The media will hound us for details, said Sheriff McMasters. Of course they will. Stick with the plan. If you want me to keep you in the loop, then you'll have to earn my trust by cooperating with us. The choice is yours. You could tell the press what you've seen on the tapes and what we've discussed here. However, if you did choose to do that, do you really think anyone would believe you? Do you think people would feel or be any safer? Agent Marsh asked sincerely. This all seems crazy. I've seen evil things when I was deployed in Iraq, but I've never seen anything like this. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around all of this, but I think your plan sounds reasonable. I'll cooperate, Sheriff McMasters thoughtfully responded. Then I'll keep you informed. Now that you know that monsters do exist, you can keep your eyes out, Agent Marsh added. Agent Kono Castabello rose to his feet and said, I don't know whether I should be relieved or not now that I know that I haven't gone crazy. What's my next step? Opening the door to exit the sheriff's office, Agent Marsh replied, You're coming with me. We have a lot to discuss. Riding shotgun in the black SUV with tinted windows, Castabello asked, Why hadn't I heard of a division within the FBI that hunts vampires? Glancing to her right to look Castabello in the eyes, Marsh answered, Moon Mist. It's a secret division that very few people in the government know about. It has to be confidential. We don't hunt vampires exclusively. We investigate unexplained phenomena. Okay. You must have known that I was tracking the murders along the East Coast. Why didn't you contact me sooner? Castabello questioned. We've been really busy. We intended to sit down with you soon. When we saw that you arrested Adam on suspicion of murder, we planned on coming to the police station the following day to interview him. We had no reason to believe that vampire would attack the police station. It seems as if this vampire is always ahead of us. He's always in control of events. He is extremely intelligent, and he's extraordinarily evil, Marsh explained as she drove in the rain. Where are we going? Castabello asked. We're going to GSP Airport to catch a flight to the Hudson Valley. That's where Moon Mist operates from. I have a lot to show you, Marsh said with a pleased look on her face. So, tell me more about vampires. Are they really undead? Do crosses work on them? Can sunlight or a wooden stake through the heart kill them? Castabello excitedly asked. Yes, vampires are undead. They have no heartbeat. They don't need oxygen. There is no scientific explanation for how this could be. We believe that magic makes it possible, and that magic governs the rules. A simple crucifix does not have any effect on them. A wooden stake through the heart kills most vampires, but it will not kill a master vampire. The sunlight, however, does destroy most vampires, and we believe that the sunlight will at least badly damage a master, Marsh explained as the windshield wipers scratched against the glass. Some of that doesn't make sense. Why would a gunshot to the heart not kill them, while a wooden stake through the heart does? Castabello questioned. You're right. If we think rationally, it doesn't make sense. Just like it doesn't make sense that a creature with no heartbeat can be animated. Nor does it make sense that such a creature needs blood to survive. However, if you think in terms of magic, then these things can begin to make some kind of sense. At least insofar as any kind of magic can make any sense. Magic may stipulate that the vampire needs blood to remain as the living dead. Magic may determine that a wooden stake can kill a vampire when it pierces the heart. Whatever kills a master will likely also be determined by the magic that governs these supernatural creatures, Marsh mused as the rain poured. Why was I able to remember the vampire when the deputy couldn't? Why didn't the compulsion work on me? Castabello asked, while rubbing the tip of his thumb against the tip of his index finger. That, Mr. Castabello, is an excellent question. We haven't come across anyone who was able to resist the compulsion of a vampire, but I have read about it in books. An ancient book on vampires, written in Latin, tells of a people who came from another place. This people could not only resist vampire compulsion, but they had special powers. They had access to a magic which gave them extraordinary abilities. Some of these abilities resembled the kinds of abilities that Jedi and Sith exhibited in Star Wars. With these powers, they hunted and destroyed vampires, Marsh explained with excitement. That sounds fantastical. This is all so surreal. It's like I'm in a wild nightmare, said Castabello. The agents had spent most of the daylight hours at the police station. The sun had been down for an hour. The rain, accompanied by fog, greatly reduced visibility. That's when a loud bang was followed by the sound of breaking glass. A body crashed through the window. The airbags deployed and prevented the agents from serious injury. When Marsh and Castabello regained their senses, they unfastened their seatbelts as they heard a hissing sound. The hissing came from a vampire. It wasn't the master, but it was an undead bloodsucker. Agent Marsh took a wooden stake out from her trench coat. Without hesitation, she drove it into the vile creature's chest. The vampire immediately turned to dust. As Marsh and Castabello got out of the car, they quickly realized that they weren't alone. In the fog, there were two more vampires approaching them. While the vampire that Marsh slayed in the car had been a man, these two vampires were women. One had red hair that resembled the color of blood. The other had blonde hair. They were both wearing what appeared to have been white nightgowns. Their skin was as white as the fog. If the agents didn't know better, they might have thought that these were phantoms rather than vampires. Castabello's heart raced as he drew his gun and fired into the chest of the red-headed vampire. The bullets knocked her down. Marsh tossed her keys to Castabello and said, "Here, open my trunk and take a wooden stake out of the black bag. Do it, quick!" As Castabello ran to the trunk of the car, the red-headed vampire sat straight up with her arms folded across her chest and then rose to her feet. The blonde vampire was moving so quickly that she couldn't be seen. She knocked the wooden stake from Marsh's hand and threw her to the ground. As the blonde vampire straddled Marsh, the red-headed vampire ran as fast as light toward Castabello and knocked him 20 yards backwards. As the redhead pounced on top of him, he drove the wooden stake into her cold, dead heart. As the stake pierced her heart, she exploded into pieces all over the road. Castabello felt a burning rage inside as he saw the blonde vampire biting and drinking the blood of Agent Marsh. All of a sudden, the blonde vampire went flying off of Lydia Marsh. She had been flung 10 yards into the night sky and 30 yards backwards into a tree branch which went through her heart. Her body instantly burst into flames. The flames set the tree on fire. The mixture of smoke and fog added to the eerie, unearthly scene. Racing towards Lydia Marsh, Castabello tightly gripped the wooden stake in his right hand. He was prepared to put the stake through his new friend's heart in case she turned into a vampire. Looking at Castabello, she said, "Put that damn stake down! I'm all right. I'm not going to turn into a vampire. A mere vampire bite doesn't transform someone into a vampire. There's more to it than that. You have to drink the blood of a vampire after they drink from you and drain you near the point of death." "Of course, I knew that. Everybody knows that," Castabello replied with a twinkle in his eye. "Holy shit! You are a descendant of the Kaibo! The legends are true! This changes everything! You're now our top priority, Marsh exclaimed. The Kaibo? Who are they? Castabello asked as he cocked his head. Remember those powerful Jedi-like people I was telling you about before? Well, you've got to be related to them. You just overpowered and killed a strong vampire using your innate abilities, Marsh responded as her beautiful blue eyes gleamed. Wait, are you saying that I used magical powers to whip a vampire through the air and impaled it through a tree branch? Yes, you did that. You saved my life. So you're basically saying that I'm a Skywalker now? Well, maybe from a certain point of view you might say that, Marsh said with a smirk. Yes! This miserable day just got a whole lot better. Call the president. I'm a vampire-slaying superhero, said Castabello with a smile. Slow your roll there, cowboy. You may technically be a vampire slayer because you destroyed 2 vampires tonight, but you aren't a superhero yet. You're going to have to study and train a lot. We abandoned the training methods of the Kaibo because no one was able to do any of the extraordinary abilities spoken of in the book. There were 2 theories as to why the training hadn't taken hold. The first theory was that such powers were nothing more than ancient myth. The second theory was that one needed to have Kaibo ancestry in order to be capable of using the magical abilities. Marsh explained as she took out her smartphone to call the Bureau to inform them of the revelations of the night. Kono Castabello and Lydia Marsh stood in the illuminated area provided by the car headlights. They watched the fire burn as they waited for the emergency responders to arrive. On this night, a new light scattered the shadow of darkness. Hope rose with the dancing embers from the fire. The FBI investigates vampires. Written and performed by Tony Capobianco. I hope that you enjoyed your stay here at the haunted Half Moon Inn. The Master requests that you consider supporting me and the inn by becoming a slave. A patron of mine on Patreon. The Half Moon Inn needs your support to keep the doors open. You wouldn't want the residents here to feel forgotten and abandoned, would you? Creating quality scary stories to share with you is very important to me. Running this inn of horror is a passion of mine, and I would truly appreciate your support. The world is hurting. It needs more horror. Help me to heal the world through horror. Together, with your help, we could haunt this world one home at a time. Until next time, always remember, just because you don't see them doesn't mean that they aren't there.
Thank you.